it's me, Katie Griswold, and today I will be sharing with you my thematic unit presentation. The theme, as you can see, is ancient Greece, and the plan that I had was for it to be for 5th grade. So a few overarching goals for the unit. The first one being the students will gain an appreciation for the arts of ancient Greece. And this spans anywhere from language arts to visual arts and even musical arts. The second one, the students will discover scientific and mathematical concepts used by the ancient Greeks. This goes for circumference and pi, and also using experiments and furthering hypotheses and things like that. Number 3, the students will engage in the learning and the immersion of ancient Greek government through the study of their society. This goes for delving a little bit deeper into concepts like democracy and what that means. So you may be thinking, why would you choose ancient Greece, Katie? Well, I firmly believe that students should have a rich understanding of ancient Greece and really getting to delve into what that culture means. I have done a lot of research, and ancient Greeks have given us so much just through sciences, philosophy, and just even our language and our systems. So the Greeks have really impacted us as a whole in so many different ways. Another really great thing is my jump students and their connections made in their classes, as well as just speaking and having good conversations with my jump teacher really just helped me ignite that fire and put together this amazing unit. And also, I'll say it, Greece is one of my favorite countries that I've ever visited. As you can see here, I have some fun little shots that I took while I was adventuring there, and it's just had a really big impact on me. Another thing is I'm super passionate about history. I love learning about past events and also how we can make the future better. And then the last being is I firmly believe that something ancient is something that we can also make more fun and inviting for students, and we can make it engaging. So for the development of my plan, I was just thinking, what can I do? What is something that will be interesting not only to me but to my students? And I pondered this for weeks, and eventually I was like, okay, well, I really love Greece and I'm really passionate about history, so why not talk about, my personal experience in Greece? So I went from there and I spoke with my jump teacher about it, and she was telling me that the students really love Percy Jackson, and so that kind of got the wheels turning so I could kind of bring that to life. And so I just started taking baby steps, and eventually I was asking for professors' help, I was doing research, I was looking at other units, and I just started working, and the excitement and the passion just really kept me going through the unit. So this kind of brings me into the summary of the research. These schemas and this background knowledge that I've built upon over even the past years, and then just this past year going to Greece, I was really able to just recollect all the memories and just the fun times that I had in Greece and all the education that I was able to learn there. Another really great thing that I used were all the books that I was able to just compile into an amazing list of anecdotal books for me to use along this journey. Another great thing that I used were the standards from Indiana. I was able to take those standards and kind of mold them into my lessons and use backwards design. So that really helped me push forward and get the wheels turning. Another really amazing tool were the websites. I was able to use some really fun and also very educational articles and things of that nature for my materials, for my lessons. And lastly, I couldn't have done it without my professor. Okay, so this is a brief synopsis in order of how the lessons would have gone in the week. I was planning with my teacher to give this whole thematic unit to the students the very last week of jump, because this would have been their last week of school after their whole testing. So I thought, what better way to just have fun in the class? So first off, we have our math lesson, which pretty much is a circumference group activity where the students will be given objects, and as a group they'll try to find the circumference of every object. For the music lesson, we will be doing a songwriting activity where the students will be given some freedom based on Greek mythologies and will be writing their own songs and performing them to the class. For the language arts lesson, they'll be doing a word and letter-based activity where they'll be painting different characters in ancient Greek. And then for Thursday, I was planning to do a social studies lesson plan where we would do a debate and a mock trial. The students will be able to have their own voice as a district and will be able to answer really pressing questions that happen in their school. For the art lesson, we would be doing a really fun and interactive activity where they're able to make their own clay vase and also decorate it themselves. And then for science, we would be doing a really engaging activity, an experiment where we see what happens when we add different variables to yeast and how that affects the growth and how we could make really good Greek bread from that. And then for my standards analysis, I reviewed all the state standards and then looked at my lesson plans, and I was like, wow, they really connect very well because these are made for 5th grade students. As a matter of fact, they can be adapted to any way that you need so that they can be used for other grades. But I just really love how hands-on these lessons are. They really get your hands dirty, they get you up close and personal to the material, and that's what we need for these 5th graders especially. They create healthy conversation and great discourse, not only among teachers, but also among peers, whether they're in groups or in partnerships. It really gets their minds going. It also allows for creativity and higher level thinking as they move from concrete to abstract learning. And then lastly, it's just both engaging and fun for students at the 5th grade level to learn something like ancient Greece. So now we're on to the lesson. Hello class, welcome back to my thematic unit. No, this is not Katie's Kitchen Corner. This is actually our science lesson. So you may be wondering, what in the world are we doing with all of these little cups and all this white powder? Well, actually we are going to be doing a little experiment with yeast. And a really, really cool thing about yeast is that it was used to bake bread and to help be a starter for even different alcohols and things of that nature. So how this connects to my ancient Greece thematic unit is that back in the olden days, they found out this really amazing fungus called yeast, and they cultured it and were able to make some really amazing things out of it. So I thought, what better way to incorporate a really tasty treat and part of an ancient Greeks and also today's Greeks and many other cultures in today's society. What better way to recreate that and see how it connects in science? So if you can bring your attention right on over here, we have the introduction to our Will It Rise science lesson. So our question for this experiment is, which variable added will help yield the best starter for fresh Greek bread? So these variables that I have in front of me consist of sugar, sugar substitute, and salt. Okay, and from these 3 variables, we need to develop a hypothesis, which is what we think will happen when we add different things together to yield our reaction and to get our result. So the really cool thing about yeast is that when you add certain things to it, it actually reacts and really cool thing happens. So we're gonna figure that out today. But first things first, we always have an experiment guide. This keeps us on track with our experiment, and it helps us just know exactly in order what we're gonna be doing, keeps us safe, and it keeps track of all of our observations. So first things first, the class is going to be getting into 3 different groups, group 1, group 2, and group 3. And if you'd like to take a little close-up of the experiment sheet. So yeah, we have 3 different groups, and then the classmates will write the names of those in the group, in their small group, and then they will circle the variable on what they will be testing, so sugar, substitute, or salt. So before we begin, why not go ahead and go over our very important vocabulary words. So I may even ask my mom, that's behind the camera right now, what is an experiment? Okay, so an experiment is something that we do where we use a procedure to try and figure out a hypothesis. It's basically a test of different trials to try to get to a conclusion. And secondly, we have our hypothesis. I already went over this in the introduction. Hypothesis is basically, what do we think is going to happen? Thirdly, we have a variable, and this is what we have right here. It's something that can be changed in the experiment. So I'll briefly go over the materials list really quick. We will need a timer or phone or some sort of watch per group to keep the time. A thermometer, which I've already used to make sure the water is warm enough. We have our sugar substitute, which is Splenda, salt, which is iodized salt, and we also have yeast. We have measuring spoons, which are a half a tablespoon, warm water, wooden coffee stirrers, clear plastic cups, Dixie cups, which I actually don't have those, but that's okay, and then also a pencil to help record your data. So our objective of the experiment today is we are going to experiment on the growth and activation of yeast and see what happens when we add these amazing variables to the mixture. So if you're tracking your sheet, it says after you've split up into your 3 large groups and paired off into groups of 3, 2s or 3s in your small group, they would have come up to the teacher's table to me to get all their materials, but hey, they're all right here on the counter. So first things first, they would be going to the sink to get some warm water for their cups. So I put some in a bowl right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and fill it up about halfway. Because you know how kids like to overfill everything. So we'll just make sure we tell them to don't go overly crazy with it, or else they will not be able to mix the variables sufficiently and it'll start spilling over the top. And again, this is much different than what we'd be experiencing in the real classroom, but still be lots of fun. Okay, so we got everything about halfway. The next thing we'll need to do is when we have everything measured out, we'd go over to our lines over here in our hypothesis, and we're gonna write down what we think is gonna happen. So, you know, students can take a few minutes to go ahead and write down what they think would happen. You know, is it gonna bubble? Is it gonna bubble over onto the floor? Is it gonna blow up? Is it gonna smell really bad? What's gonna happen? Next, the other person in the group will have to time it for about 5 minutes for this next step. And then the next step is we are gonna have one of the group members take a little bit, just kidding. We need to take see, this is why we pay close attention to our experiment sheet. We have to take our yeast first, okay? And we need to take half a tablespoon. There goes my earring. Take a half a tablespoon of yeast and put it into each cup of warm water. Instruct the students to do this slowly and to make sure it coats the whole surface of the water. It smells really good. Oh, and it's okay if you get a little bit on your counter or your desk. Okay, so after we've done that, we're gonna go ahead and carefully pour our variables on top. So sugar, Splenda, and salt. Oh. And then going to mix these together. Here's the sugar. And then here's the sugar substitute. Just make sure it's well incorporated. Thank you. And then now we have the salt, which fell to the bottom. I see. It's okay, we just mix it up, make sure it's well incorporated. Okay, so next step, we will wait for 5 minutes and see what happens. And they will be observing their cups, tell us a little bit of what's happening. Yeah. All right, here's our sugar substitute, and salt. At this point, the students will be observing and making their observations. Hey class, we're back. It's been 5 minutes, and now let's go ahead and take a look at our yeast. So here's our sugar. It looks really good to me. Looks like it really frothed up, and we could even hear some crackles along the way. Definitely smells of yeast and looks like a little pancake almost. Now over here to the sugar substitute. Looks very similar to the sugar. Yeah, given that, you know, we had 5 minutes, we don't really know what else is gonna happen, but it looks really good to me. Looks a little bit shinier on top than the sugar, but honestly, I think it did a really good job. Our salt, on the other hand, did not do a good job. Looks pretty sad. Didn't really bubble much at all. Looks like some of the yeast kind of sank to the bottom, and there's still a lot of water along the edge, so it shows that it really didn't react much chemically. So, judging by our 3 little experiments here and our different variables, I think it's safe to say that the sugar substitute did the best, and of course the sugar. But I'd honestly say the real test is, what do you think that these starters would look like if we added them to a bread mixture and baked them in the oven ourselves? Honestly, me as a teacher, I would say they'd probably come out pretty similar based on what we just did here, and this is after 1 trial. So I challenge you to maybe try this at home or in, you know, your own classroom, and I'd be eager to hear what you find out. So thank you for joining me on this little science experiment, and for my thematic unit as a whole, I've had a lot of fun with you guys.